What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. On today's video, we're going to be talking about this, my Sony Rx1R Mark II. And of course, as I was getting ready to make this video, Sony goes ahead and drops the Mark III version of this camera. And my initial reactions were, because I just recently purchased this camera on the used market, and I thought it was an attack on all of my recent choices. But regardless of Sony dropping that camera and its ridiculous price tag, I think that gives me more of a reason to actually make this video and talk about this camera for a little bit. So that's what we're gonna do today, and yeah, let's get right to it. But before we do that though, let's actually address the elephant in the room that is the Mark III version of this camera. We knew that this camera needed an update. We waited, what, 12 years to get an update, and we got the update. Now, to my liking and to my standards of cameras, I think obviously Sony makes amazing cameras, and you know, it's up to par with technology and yada yada yada, all that stuff. But come on, bro, that price tag. I don't know who in their right mind is going to be paying upwards of $5,000 for a pocket camera or a point and shoot camera when you can just, for that money, just go ahead and buy the Leica that you always wanted, right? So, I mean, I don't get it. It's a great camera. I don't think it's substantially better than this one. Given the 12-year gap, I don't think it's that far ahead, and we'll get into the specs and you know how this camera performs in a second. But that is my take on the Mark III version. I don't think it's a camera that you should be buying or looking into unless you want to really splurge and waste your money on a new camera. By all means, go ahead and do that, but you know, there's other things out there where you can put your money to and you're gonna be way better off. So moving on, this camera right here came out, like I said, about 12 years ago, and to this day I don't think there has ever been a camera like it, this small, with a fixed lens and a full frame sensor and a pop-up viewfinder. I mean, I don't think that ever since this camera was released there has been any other camera like it or that could even compete with it. And I've always wanted this camera, but it was always way out of my price range. I remember seeing this camera for the first time. I was walking around in New York, and I saw a Sony store, and I, you know, dipped into the Sony store, kind of like looking around, and I saw this camera on one of the little like glass cases, and I thought, wow, what an incredible camera. I mean, it's so small and it has a full frame sensor on it, and I bet it's just a beast. And like, I look at the price tag, and at the time I think it was somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000, and I nearly choked. I was like, what the heck? Like, why is that camera so expensive? It's just the same as the A7 that I had at the time that was half of the price, and it's half of the camera because it's half the size. So I don't know why the camera's so expensive. Anyways, I think Sony made this camera to compete with the Leica Q at the time, and obviously at $3,000 to $4,000 range, you know, Leicas cost upwards of $5,000, so it made sense. But for me, it didn't. I could never afford it. I could never buy it, so I put it off my mind. That was until recently. I was selling some gear online on MPB, a couple of bodies, a couple of lenses, stuff I had laying around that I wasn't really using for anything, and I wanted to make some money off it. So I sent it off to them, and when I got the quote back, I knew that I had enough money to buy this camera. A friend of mine, James, had recently gotten his, and he let me play around with his for a little bit, and I immediately fell in love with the form factor, how small it is, and the images that the camera was taking. I mean, it was incredible images, full frame, you get the full frame look and all that stuff. So I was like, sold. So I went ahead and picked one up. I think that the price tag on this one was around $2,300, which is steep for a 12-year-old camera. But let me tell you why, for me, it made sense. First of all, like I said, it's not money that I actually spent on the camera. I was selling off some gear and I kind of traded my gear in for this, so that made sense. It didn't cost me anything extra. So for me, it was basically a free camera, so I can justify the price on that alone. Secondly, I've always had pocket cameras near me. I've always had some small point and shoot, whether it's this one by Leica, the Ricoh GR, the RX, whatever the heck it is from Sony, that's another point and shoot. Like all these cameras that I have and I review and I talk about, I like them because of their form factor, and they're super clutch when you want to go on a trip and you want to pack light and all that stuff. But to be fairly honest with you, I've always missed my big camera whenever I take a small camera. I've always missed the look of the images when you get, you know, the full frame look. And I know a lot of people debate about the full frame look, whether it's irrelevant, whether it's not. For me, it makes a difference. I like the full frame look. I see it, I notice it, and I like it. So the only way I can get the full frame look is by having a full frame camera. So ever since getting the camera, I've been very impressed with its actual performance. Obviously, before getting it, I was on YouTube scouring and looking at all the reviews that other people had made on this camera, and there were more bad stuff than good stuff out there. So I was a little skeptical before receiving this camera. People will criticize that it was slow and that the battery life was atrocious and that the screen resolution wasn't on par with whatever, and the list can go on. But in practice, I have not yet experienced any drawbacks to this camera. I understand that the battery life is pretty poor. I mean, if you can just take a look at this battery, this thing is tiny. Like, what is this? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, of course it's not gonna last, you know, a whole day of shooting. But the way that I actually shoot my cameras when I'm walking around out and about is that I flick it on, I shoot a picture that I see or that I want, and then I turn it off again. And you know, with regards to response time in this camera, when you actually do turn it on, there you go. It's not slow by any means. I don't know what people are expecting from a camera from 12 years ago, but for this to be a 12-year-old camera, it still performs like a modern today version of the same camera. Other things I do find quick in the camera is the focusing on the camera. I think that for a 12-year-old camera, it focuses very quick and it shoots quick as well. So for me, not a problem there on the way that I, you know, approach photography and that I use the camera. Maybe it's not as fast as the brand new Sonys or any of the other brand new cameras that just came out this year, but that to me is a little bit irrelevant when you're taking photographs that are just like memories, or like you're, you know, in the heat of a moment and you just take a snap a photo or something like that. So I haven't had any issues with the autofocus, and I don't know if like this specific camera that I got is good versus others that are bad, or if people in the internet are referring to the Mark I version of this camera and not the Mark II. But this, the Mark II version of the Rx1R, is pretty fast when it comes to autofocusing. And one of the things that I really like about this camera is this pop-up viewfinder right here. I mean, this thing is super clutch, especially on bright sunlight and stuff like that, where you actually want to look through a viewfinder to compose your shot. This is great. And it also makes it feel more of like a camera, if you will. It doesn't feel so much as a point and shoot. Now when you pop it up, it just actually feels like, oh, I'm using a camera because I'm using a viewfinder to look and compose and take my shots. And I really like that about this camera. And yes, okay, it's not the latest and greatest viewfinder, but you can see your composition and you can see what's there and you can gauge your exposure and you can take your shots. So what else do you need from a viewfinder, really? And then there's the images, the most important part. And I don't know what it is, if it's the combination of 12-year-old sensor and this Zeiss lens, but the images that come out of this camera are really, really dang good. There's a certain texture to them. There's a certain flavor. The separation that you get from the lens is amazing to my eye. I really, really enjoy photographing with this camera. The only thing is that I worry about the battery life, but you know, the workaround is to buy more batteries, and I do have a case with 2 extra batteries so that I can run pretty much a whole day without worrying about running out of battery. So I said in the beginning, this camera was meant to compete with the likes of the Leica Q. And although this is not a Leica designed or Leica built camera, I actually do prefer this to the Leica Q. And I say that as a previous owner of a Leica Q. For a little bit, I owned the Leica Q Mark I, which I got also on the used market. Great camera, mint condition, amazing images, beautiful lens. I mean, Leica quality at its finest. But I kept having problems with that camera because it was a little bit larger. It was heavy, being a Leica, being well built. And also for my style of photography, I kept hitting the buffer constantly on that camera. I don't know what it was about the internals of the camera or the chip that they were using, or I don't know any of that technical stuff, but I knew that every couple of images the camera would hit a buffer and it would just not let me shoot, and I would be missing moments of my kids playing around, of you know, some portrait I was taking or some action that I wanted to capture, and I kept missing shots because the camera was hitting the buffer. And that was one of my biggest fears about this camera. Was this camera going to have that same issue, being that it's 12 years old, around the same time as the Leica Q? So I was very curious about how this camera would handle it. And to my surprise, this camera handled it phenomenal. I mean, I have hit the buffer a couple of times when shooting long bursts of, you know, somebody running around or something like that, but it clears the buffer much quicker than the Leica Q, and I don't hit it often. So yeah, pretty good camera. But I do recommend getting all of these other attachments that I have for it, because it just makes the experience of holding the camera and actually shooting with it that much better. Up top here, if you can see, I have a little thumbs up type of finger notch, and it makes it very comfortable to hold and to, you know, press the shutter button. My particular camera also came with a little hand grip that sort of gives you a little more grip there, because these cameras, being the point and shoot body style that they are, they don't have a grip at all. So having this on there actually makes this camera very comfortable to hold and very nice to use. This lens, like I said, is phenomenal, and the images are phenomenal. And one of the great things about it is that it has a macro feature. So you can twist this little ring over here and go into macro mode and get that much closer to your subjects, and you can actually get pretty close with this camera. So to me, that makes it a very, very well-rounded camera for everyday shooting, walking around, or even in professional settings. So would I recommend this camera in the year 2025? Yes, I would recommend this camera in the year 2025 because it's still an amazingly great camera. I think it holds up very well. I think it's sturdy, well built, all metal design. I mean, if you can find one in good condition online, I say go for it. This one that I got was described as mint condition, and there is not a single scratch on the body or anywhere on this camera. I mean, it looks like it was taken out of the box yesterday, and it's a 12-year-old camera. So if you're as lucky as I am and you can find one just in the same condition, I say go for it. I mean, it's an incredible camera. It's so fun to use, and it's sort of, you know what it does? It sort of takes away from the guilt that you feel when you don't take your big camera and you're trying to compensate with the smaller camera because you don't want to carry your big camera, if that makes any sense. At least for me, that's the case at all times. Every time I take another camera that's not my Nikon ZF, I feel like I'm just doing a disservice to photography because I should be shooting with a better camera, with the bigger sensor and the better lenses. But with this little camera, I feel super confident that I can achieve the same quality of images that I can with my ZF, because I still have a full frame sensor and I have an amazing lens in front of it. So Now, would I recommend this over the Mark III version? Again, I would have to say yes because of the cost. I mean, more than $5,000 for a camera is a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm saying that this camera is cheap. More than $2,000 for a camera is a lot of money. It's still very expensive, but it's much more affordable. I bet you that it's still as good when you get the images back. And I would say just pick one up before the prices on these go skyrocket, because if there's any indication from when a camera brand drops a new camera is that the older version gets really hyped up. Like when Fujifilm dropped their R or whatever rangefinder one, the price of the GFX 50R just doubled within a day. And so, you know, it's bound to happen to this one too. So I would say if you're interested, if you're maybe looking around, if you're curious and you kind of, you know, want to spend some money in a really good camera, I say go for the Mark II version of the Sony Rx1R. Just completely skip the Mark III version. So yes, those are all my thoughts on the Sony Rx1R Mark II. If you feel like I missed something, let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.